How can entrepreneurs and the innovation ecosystem further improve its commercialization success on a global scale? Find out on this episode of Tomorrow's Tech. Here to share lessons from his entrepreneurial journey and as part of the commercialization team at the University of Michigan, we welcome Wesley Huffstutter to the show today. Wesley is also the entrepreneur in residence at the Queensland University of Technology. Welcome, Wesley.
Thanks for having me.
Wesley, on your entrepreneurial journey, what was the key piece of advice that you received that had a big impact on you as a startup founder?
Yeah, I would say that many people would say plan for the exit. I would say prepare for the exit. One of the best pieces of advice I got was from another CEO who told me to prepare your data room early. In the due diligence process, you'll have to create a data room where you put all your documents in, and it's a very difficult task. And from the beginning, I, as a founder, started putting all of my documents in there, whether it's IP agreements, whether it's NDAs or employment agreements. I even shared it with my CTO where we were putting all of our data sources. We were a big data company, and so we had a lot of data coming in, and all those data agreements, all those sort of things. And as we managed this company, and this you could just do anything, right? You could put it in Box, you could put it in Google Drive, anything, and sort of share that amongst your senior team. At Quadmetrics, when I was running Quadmetrics, we received an unsolicited offer. So we weren't planning to be acquired at that point. But after some negotiation, we ended up accepting the improved offer, and we had everything ready. It saved us a heap of time. And I don't know if your viewers have ever gone through the process, but it is long, it is difficult, it's very distracting from actually running your business, because you still have to be running your business at the same time. By having all of that set up in advance, it helped us tremendously. I think it helped us manage our organization too, because we were always, you can keep track of everything, and you knew where everything was, and it became a lot more efficient. So that was probably the best advice I got.
Wesley, given our reputation for research excellence, what can Australia do to further improve its commercialization success on a global scale?
Well, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of pressure that they have to succeed and be successful right away, and it leads them to fall into a similar trap that I saw in the United States as well. So it's this kind of this short-term thinking of generating revenue really quickly. They're so focused on kind of getting the most out of a deal. And this happens a lot when you don't do a lot of startups and you don't do a lot of licenses, then you immediately think that, if this becomes the next Google and I let this get out the door for nothing, this is, it looks really bad on me. That kind of mentality leads to thinking, where you're kind of maximizing, wringing every dollar out of the deal, and will lead to either the parties walking away, or you'll actually create the problem of the startup being able to sort of struggle because under the weight of these terms. It's a bit like if you're raising venture capital. First-time entrepreneurs think, I'll just try to maximize my valuation and increase the share. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and maximize your value of your company. I'm certainly not saying that. But you have to think about sort of this long-term strategy here, which is if you leave a little bit of money on the table, then you're sort of creating a greater environment for you to succeed. You decrease the risk of the next round being flat or a down round. And therefore, the VC has much more incentive to help you and even fundraise for you because the value of what they just did increased as well. Good point, Wesley. How would long-term commercialization incentives apply to incubators and accelerators? Yes. Well, yeah, I think that we have the same sort of issues, structural issues here too as well, where I've worked with a lot of accelerators in the U.S. as a mentor, and you see the similar sort of thinking. When I first came here, I thought, man, there's a heap of accelerator programs and incubator programs around here. And I really started digging in, and I started sort of talking, and it's the same sort of things that sort of keep coming up, which is we're again focused more towards the short-term thinking versus the long-term thinking. A lot of these programs are really built around a cohort, and that group of people getting through. And so if you look at the way they're funded and the way their revenue is based, it ends up being on on, whether it be a grant for that cohort or maybe the corporate sponsor or those individuals. And so when you think about how do you get more revenue, how do you keep this going, you get another cohort through. And so the measure becomes throughput. How many people can you get to these programs? But when you look at the long term, you're thinking more about equity. For example, in the U.S., there's Techstars. And I understand Techstars is the anomaly. They've been hugely successful. But you look at how they started, right? Equity-based. They were very selective. When you focus on the quality, then you're going to end up really thinking about what is the quality of those people coming in? Are they really good? Can I increase the value going out? And so you think about Techstars where they did the first 10 in their cohort. They really focused on quality. And when you do that, what happened to them was the 2 of their first 10 were acquired in the first year. And you think about, if you're playing that longer game, that equity game, then the output becomes significantly higher quality. And, in putting it sort of in VC terms, within 7 years, those startups in aggregate raised over $1 billion in financing. That's massive,
wow. Right?
And so the focus again is on the quality, not the quantity. And so I think that's where we start thinking about the long term and the incentives are a bit misaligned.
Yeah, that's great to understand how the Australian startup ecosystem can have more of a long-term focus for achieving success. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Wesley. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you to everybody that tuned in. If you liked this episode, follow us on the Tomorrow's Tech LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram pages and subscribe now to the Tomorrow's Tech YouTube channel. Be the difference. If you want more deep insights to the hard questions, we'll see you again next time for another episode of Tomorrow's Tech.
Tomorrow's Tech, presented by 3 Dot Digital.